okay another couple of minutes before we start?
Sure. All right. So you have been teaching English for how long? Can you just share with us what level you teach, which age group you teach? Is teaching your passion? Maybe we can start with that. 20. Wow, quite an experienced teacher. 45, 18. Wow. 5, Dalia. 17. Wow. Nice numbers. Nice numbers. So great honor. Thank you. 18 years, 13 years, 21. And it's good to see that you are still looking forward to learning more about teaching. Well, I think it's your passion because you're here, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be. You could have had better things. My Farouk, you are a science teacher, not English. Wow. So, how do you think this webinar will help you in teaching science if you share your ideas?
I'm teaching science in English.
Very good. Very good.
The oral performance is important. It's
Good.
not a different language.
So you're teaching content in English.
Yes.
So, good. It is a challenge for both you and the students, right?
Sure.
Because I remember learning science and maths in English when I was in the secondary school. I learned physics in English. Physics is challenging enough. Adding the language component made it more challenging for me.
But for me, English is the same as Arabic. I've been learning in English since I was 4 years old.
So it's like your native language.
Yes, it is.
Good. Very good.
Okay, I think we can start. We do
Sure.
have quite a number now.
Yes.
So hello, everyone. I guess good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we do have people from different parts of the world. And we might be having people where it's nighttime. Welcome to IH Cairo weekly webinars. I mean, they used to be bi-weekly, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we do have more people interested to join us and speak at IH Cairo webinars for teacher training. Today we have Aysel, who is going to be sharing her long experience with students' oral performance. We will start by her presentation first, and then as she goes along, if you have any questions, I will share in the chat box the link to a Padlet where you can, let me share my screen to show you how it looks like. So that's a Padlet where all you have to do is to have the link, which I will be sharing shortly. And you can add your questions under Aysel's webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them here. And I will be there to pick the questions up and share with Aysel once she's done with her webinar. So let me share the link with everyone. So, and please click on the link and see if you're able to have access to it. This will be an easier way for me to write down questions. Once Aysel is done, we will share the screen and we will look at the questions, and then we will have a lot of time webinar. At the end, I will also introduce the next week's webinar and the webinars for October as well. So please stay tuned, enjoy the webinar, and it's all yours, Aysel.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Abir. Thank you, IH Cairo. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today on this webinar. I hope it's going to worth it. I see some old faces, as I have said. Some people I know from Cairo, some people I know from education faculty in Eskişehir, and some new faces I hope to see again. It's really nice. Thank you. Thank you. Um, do you have any questions on your mind regarding this webinar? Do you have any questions you expect me to answer? If you do, please put it in the chat box. And let's see if I can answer those questions throughout the webinar. Take 1 minute and write down your questions. Meanwhile, I'll share my screen. All right, the title of my presentation is, hey, my students can speak English. That's what we want, what we dream as language teachers, right? We all want our students speak English fluently. And whenever you meet someone struggling, they always say, at least in Turkey, where I come from, they say that they can understand, but they cannot speak. And of course, it's a process, it takes time, but today we will see how we can help our students along the way, how we can help students in speaking in English. Okay, why do our students have problems in speaking in English? Do you have any ideas? Please unmute yourself and share your ideas. Nice questions.
Sometimes they are afraid of making mistakes, pronouncing in the wrong way.
Correct. Any other ideas? Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
In the case of my students, I'm from the Philippines, by the way, and English is not our first language. And so it being our second language, or for others, foreign language, that makes it difficult for my students to speak in English. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ideas?
Sometimes students cannot find the suitable words to express themselves.
Okay.
Some students are afraid of making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for my case, because I'm living in China, so the students, they don't really have this opportunity to speak English. The only chance they get into learn English is within the English class itself. And the class is always very big. So that's why.
Well, yeah, lack of practice, right? Especially lack of practice or meaningful use outside the classroom, fear of making mistakes, lack of vocabulary. Yeah, I understand.
Sometimes the students are not interested in the topic you want them to talk about.
Yeah, very, very good point. Very good point, Judith. Thank you. So basically, I agree with all the points you have brought up. And I think this brings us to 2 points: being more skillful, being more knowledgeable. When I say being more skillful, I refer to lack of experience outside the classroom, or sometimes even in the classroom, because of the number of students. And when I say lack of knowledge, I mean vocabulary, for example, or the language, the structure. So these are the things that, so we have to help them deal with lack of skills and lack of knowledge as teachers. All right. Now, my next question is speaking a means or an end in your classroom? I think this is a very valid question, because when we think of a language classroom, especially if you are following an integrated syllabus, you always have a speaking component, but it's not only in the speaking lessons. We use speaking in other lessons also, like grammar, vocabulary. So when you look back your lessons, is it a means or an end in your classroom? Can I hear a couple of answers? Okay, do you use
I'm sorry, I can't get what do you need, what do you want, what do you mean by mean or an end?
Okay. For example, let's say you do a reading lesson, and before you set the reading task, you ask students to talk about a certain topic, the topic of the reading. It's a means because your primary focus is reading, but in a speaking lesson, it's a different story. Okay, why don't we come back to this question later on and carry on with others? If it is an end in your lesson, your focus is some of these points or one of these points. When we say speech acts, we mean functional language like greetings, introducing yourself, apologizing, for example. When we say features of spoken grammar, we talk about ellipses, for example, contracted language. And when we say stress and intonation, we talk about word stress, sentence stress, rising or falling intonation depending on the structure. So when you want to focus on speaking as an end, these are some of the examples. I think today's teachers are very lucky because course books are started to incorporate more and more of these features in their materials. So most of the books have sections on one or two of these features.
True, that's true.
All right, what do we need? Can you please read the stages? Of course, I'm not claiming that this is a linear process, but this can be well, there will be a lot of going back and forth in learning, but read the stages and see if it makes sense to you. So the ultimate goal is being able to use the language in real time, under real time conditions. So conceptualizing, formulating, and articulating and self-monitoring in the real time. That's the ultimate goal. But to achieve that goal, you have to introduce learners, make them aware of the target knowledge base, and then help them integrate this knowledge into their existing knowledge and gradually gain control over the language. That's what we aim. These are the theories, basically, that inform the teaching of speaking. I'm not going to go into details, but when you look at, you can see some similarities. The behaviorist mind, the cognitivist mind, and the sociocultural mind, they all inform teaching speaking, how we teach speaking in the language classroom. And the common points are awareness, appropriation, and autonomy. I like these terms better than presentation, practice, and production. I'll explain why later on. But this is very important because if we talk about awareness and presentation in a way puts the responsibility on the teacher. It's the teacher who is active and who presents, who clarifies. Of course, there are ways of doing that in a learner-centered way, involving students in the process. But when you look at awareness, when we talk about the components of awareness, I think it will be much more clearer to us. When we talk about awareness, it is the student who becomes aware of certain things. So I like that better. All right. These are the stages of the learning process, but of course, the teaching process should agree with the stages of the learning process. Okay, what will the first step be if awareness is the goal?
Highlighting certain chunks,
Maybe.
or maybe highlighting useful language so that
Maybe.
the students use it later with productive
Thank you.
follow-up.
Thank you, Dalia, for the contribution. Any other ideas? Okay.
It could be a short dialogue, either a written or a listening to a dialogue. If you want people to speak, probably a listening one would be best, in which it's the subject and the functional area is also contained in it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Judy. Right. The first step, as Dalia and Judy put very nicely, is to raise the awareness of the students. So what does this include? The awareness have two functions, basically. So discovering the knowledge gap, and so discovering what our students already know and what they need to learn, and filling in these knowledge gaps. So two functions, and we do it. It has three main processes: attention, noticing, and understanding. So attention is drawing students' attention to the target language. We can do it in different ways. We will talk about the ways. Noticing is the second part, to help students see the features, the target language, and if finally and eventually understanding, saying, this is how we do it, this is how we use it. So deducing a rule based on what they have seen. Noticing is possible if the target language appears frequently, if it is salient, like we call it enhanced input, if it appears frequently, or if it is highlighted in the text, as Judith said, mainly it is a recording. Okay, this is a page from the new language leader, intermediate level. There are different activities, as you see. I want you to look at the activities and keeping in mind attention, noticing and understanding. Try to link these activities to those processes. If you may, take 3 minutes to have a look at it and see.
Could you zoom in? Isaac, could you zoom in, please?
I think you can zoom in. If you go to view options on the top of the screen, you can make it bigger on your own screen.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, would you like to share your ideas in the breakout rooms? Very quickly. There will be 2 or 3 participants in each room. So please share your ideas. How do you match these activities with those stages?
Are you there? Uh, Hi, Muhammad. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Maybe more time next time with breakout room, because people have just joined and then now you're closing it. So
No, I did it because some of them couldn't join.
yeah.
Okay. Are you all back now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Next time, I think we will try something else. You will take the screenshot and go back to your breakout rooms. Some of you missed the invitation, I guess. We had some problems. Anyway, I apologize if it is caused
No
by
problem.
me, by anyway. All right, so what did you discuss in your groups? What do you say the purpose of number 1, 2A, and 2B is?
Attention.
Okay, attention.
Attention grabber.
All right. Any other ideas?
I think the activity 3A could be noticing, and 3B and 3C might be understanding.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other ideas? All right. This is a very this book has a speaking component, speaking section in each unit. My understanding, my interpretation is the first activity and 2A and 2B aims at introducing the context, because when we talk about a functional language, we talk about use, right? When do we use this? So basically 2 sets the context, 2A and 2B also does the same thing, and it also introduces the language in a context. And when you look at 3A, it is a gap fill activity. It helps students in noticing the target language. And 3B is further noticing, because students are asked to classify the language they have seen, giving an opinion, agreeing, disagreeing, and suggesting. And 3C, which is underlining the target language in the tape script, is also identifying the target language, so it is further noticing. So these are all noticing activities. Understanding is more like will be the contribution of the teacher via a guided discovery activity in which students complete the form, identify the fixed part, so the teacher can give the fixed part of the functional exponent, and then ask students decide how it is completed. Here our main focus is on the meaning, the use of the functional exponent. And this is more on pronunciation, and it is still student-centered, because rather than the teacher telling them which word is stressed, the students are choosing the stressed word by listening. Of course, after that, the teacher should help students understand the general rule. So basically, the materials help students notice the language, notice the pronunciation, the stressed word, and then, of course, it's the teacher's job to help students understand a general rule. You have seen identifying, underlining in the tape script is identifying. Classifying, the second activity was classifying. But these are the other, and you have seen an example of fill in the gaps. So we generally use a combination of different techniques that help students notice the target language. As Judy mentioned, the tools we have is live listening, or recordings or tape scripts. Live listening is possible if it is an anecdote, for example, if you are sharing an anecdote. If it is a one speaker kind of speaking, it is possible. But if it is a dialogue, like a functional language, then recordings or tape scripts will be much more useful. I'm not going to go over the details of the procedure, but there is one rule we should bear in mind. If we are using any kind of listening, the first thing students should do is understand the listening. After they understand the listening, they can start working on the target language. It's a must. It's a rule we have to bear in mind. The second stage is appropriation. It is the collaborative construction of behavior and mental process, because when you learn something, what you already know, this is one activity that you can use. Do we expect our students produce any language from scratch in this activity?
No.
No, not really. All they need to do is listen and practice. This is an online material, so they can record their voices and play back to check, and they can work individually. And in the class, you can also use the activity. You can adapt this to face-to-face teaching. During the pandemic, we all had lots of experience with online teaching, right? Okay. So this is one activity. The other one is this. Is it more challenging than the first one? The focus is different, I know. Then the first one, the focus is pronunciation, but in this one, choosing the appropriate exponent.
Yeah, it's more difficult. It's a different focus, yeah. Here they need to understand the whole, maybe the whole dialogue so that they can fit the chunks in the dialogue. So it's a bit challenging for them compared to the other one because they just record or listen and repeat. So it's a different one.
Right. Okay. What about this one? Which one is more challenging, the previous one or this one?
This
I
one
think
is
this
more
one,
challenging.
yeah,
Yes.
this one is
This
a bit
one.
challenging.
Nothing to choose from.
No prompts.
Yeah, they need to understand the given sentence and complete the sentence using the given words. Okay, make necessary changes. All right, 3 different practiced control. I will use practiced control instead of controlled practice, mainly because there's a difference between the two. So these activities help the students practice the skill and help the students take over the ownership of the practiced language feature. And this is possible, this is achievable by providing controlled practice. What is the difference between the two? Any ideas? Okay, let me help you with that.
Yeah, please.
Does this clarification make any sense?
Maybe control practice has to do with language items, so kind of like systems, but as practice control, it has to do with practicing certain sub-skill, maybe, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Dalia. It's you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other ideas? When we train teachers, we keep talking about variety, have different types of activities in your lessons. And the other thing we emphasize is the order of difficulties from less difficult to more difficult. So basically what you do is you reduce the amount of support you provide to your students, right? So there is more room for making mistakes, but there is support there already. So basically, if you minimize the possibility of making mistakes, you don't give any chance to take risks to your students. So as teachers, when you provide these practice activities, whatever you call it, controlled practice, practice control, the idea is gradually giving them more control over what they are doing and supporting them less so that they can experiment with the language. It's very important. And the other thing we emphasize in teacher training is monitoring. So this practice stage is an opportunity to monitor your students closely, see how well they have understood the target language, what challenges they have, and maybe revisit while giving the feedback to your students. So basically, my point here is have different types of activities in the practice stage, and control what students are going to say less gradually. So decrease the amount of control you have among what your students are going to say. And monitor as your students are doing the tasks so that you can learn what to give feedback on later on. These are some activities. Drilling is our good old friend, as you know. Of course, there are different types of drilling. So as long as you change, well, as long as you have a rich repertoire of different techniques of drilling, it is going to be better. Chants are more meaningful, more fun. For example, you can divide students into two groups. One group may give opinion, let's focus on the same structure, and the other group can just agree or disagree, so it's going to be more fun. Milling activities are you give your students one structure, so they circle around, talk to different people. It's a kind of drilling, but it's more meaningful. I like paper conversation because it's safe for the students. All they need to do is to write the conversation without saying anything on a piece of paper. In the initial stages, you may use substitution. You just underline the functional language in the dialogue, and you ask your students to substitute that language with an appropriate one. So it gives you a chance to see whether they have understood the function of different functional exponents. If you have any questions regarding these activities, feel free to ask later on Padlet or at the end of the session today. But as teachers, I think we need to be aware of our options. That's very important. It's not only gap fill. We have plenty of options, and you can just use them in your lessons. At the initial stages of this step of the appropriation, students can refer to the lists of functions, and their conversations can be shorter. But gradually, you can just prompt them saying that they should try not to look at the lists and they should refer to the verbal and the visual prompts you provide in the session, in the activity. Okay, of course, the ultimate goal is making sure that our students can use the language automatically, or they have more control over the language, so that in real time conditions they can use the target language. Maria, do you have a question?
I think you mute Marina.
I didn't mute anyone, and
she's connecting. I think she's connecting. If you can give her a second.
Sure. She is at school.
I think someone is going to help her. So if you can give her a minute.
We have time. I have time. Now I can hear you, Marina. Probably it's a mistake, Abir, right?
It could be. So you can go on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we talked about speaking. Okay. Now, we have certain questions we need to ask when we choose a task. The first one is it practical? Is it purposeful? Is it productive, predictive, and adaptive? When we say, is it practical? When we ask this question, is it easy to set and manage the task in the classroom? That's the question we are asking. Is it purposeful? Is there a real outcome our students will achieve at the end of the task? Is the other question. Is it productive? Will it generate a lot of language use? Will they be able to speak like for 5 minutes, for example, or will it finish in 30 seconds? Will they speak a lot? Will the task make it possible? Is the task predictive? Will it naturally require the use of the target language? Because when you set the task by nature should require the use of the target language. It shouldn't be forced on it. That's very important. Is it adaptive? Can you use the task with different levels of learners? Is another question you should be asking. All right. Now, the same unit, the same part, and this is the task. Okay, please take a screenshot if you can. I will share the questions with you in the chat box, hopefully. So, is this practical? Let's talk together because breakout rooms may not be that productive all the time. Is it practical? That's my first question. Is it easy to set? Yes, no? Read the task and
Yeah, it is.
okay. Is it productive?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What about outcome? Is there an outcome? Dalia.
Yes.
It took me back to our time together. Yeah. Is there an outcome in this activity? Samir, Marina, Samir raised her hand again. Okay. So, what was the other question? Practical? Is it predictive? Do they need to use the language function, agreeing, disagreeing, giving opinion, making suggestion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good. This is a very nice task. When you look at this one, what do you think the purpose of activity 4 is? Activity 4 is here.
Setting the context.
Okay. Any other ideas?
To help students, it's giving them a criteria of what they are looking for or how to build their task, what to build their task around.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you. At the very beginning, Judy mentioned that yeah, students are challenged because they don't have anything to say, right? They cannot speak because they don't have anything to say. But when you look at activity 4, it is in the same context. We have started with the listening, the discussion, and we have been building on that. So we have been providing information to our students to be able to talk about this topic. And here we are still providing information on the qualities of an assistant Chris and Jody are looking for. So the problem, they don't know what to say or they don't have enough to talk about, is in a way solved with this activity. So we are supporting them with this activity. So we have provided them with the functional language, giving their opinion, agreeing, disagreeing, making suggestions. Is there an outcome here?
Yes.
Yeah, what is the outcome?
Yeah, they have to answer these questions. You mean exercise 4, right?
No, I mean, now we have understood the purpose of exercise 4. Now look at the task. What is the outcome of the task?
They will choose the best candidate.
Choose suitable candidate.
So they have to agree. They have to come to an agreement, right? This is a ranking activity. If you look at 5C, they have to rank the candidates in order of suitability. So it's going to be a very meaningful conversation, if you ask me. All right. And you know what else students have? They have these profiles.
Okay, that's good.
Student A has these profiles and student B has these profiles. And if you go back to the previous task, you see student A works individually first, student B works individually first, and their job is to underline the good points and the bad points. So they are ready to discuss with their partner in B. So as you see, the activity is nicely scaffolded. And students are supported with the language and with the content also. And hopefully they are interested in the topic, so they can talk about it. They can talk about the topic. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Did you like the activity? I like the activity. It's obvious in my tone, but did you also like the activity?
Yes.
Yes, it's well staged and communicative, and
Yeah, it's very nice and lots of support, right?
yeah.
So students are not left alone to talk about a topic. Choose the best candidate or choose an assistant for Chris and Jody would be an activity with an outcome, but there wouldn't be any support. But in this way, when you design the activity, plan the activity in this way, you provide a lot of support, both language-wise and content-wise. That's why I like the activity, and it's nicely staged. What is the advantage of starting with individual work?
Giving them some individual time to think,
yes,
to be prepared for the discussion, so that they have something to say.
Exactly. I like that individual work. I like think, pair, share kind of staging a lot. When students work individually first, they commit to the activity, they spend time. And is there an information gap in this activity? Yes or no?
I don't think
so.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I think
If
yes.
if the students stick to the role, to the profiles they're given, then yes, there is going to be an information gap, because they're going to have to communicate to discuss the different strong points about the candidates, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You have to make sure that students keep the profiles to themselves, right? It's very private, so they shouldn't share with the other student, with their partner. Then, of course, there is no information gap. All right. So information gap activities mainly we use in this stage, like dialogues. There are different types of cue cards, functional cue cards, visual cue cards. Role play is another alternative. Students can assume in the previous activity they were working for a recruitment office, for example. It was kind of a role play, although it was a task. And when we say task, we mainly talk, well, there are different types of tasks, like ranking. This one was a ranking task, or problem solution tasks. And tasks generally inherently have a communicative outcome at the end. Okay, if speaking is means, this brings me back to my first question at the beginning of the session. This means students are speaking in the other lessons. We keep saying that practice makes perfect, so we should increase the opportunities to speak in English in our classroom. And if you limit speaking to the speaking lessons only, of course, you rob that opportunity from your students. So speaking should be ensured. I like that word, Abir. Speaking should be ensured in other lessons. How can you do that? I think this is a very nice question you can think about. How are we doing time-wise, Abir? Can I carry on?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think this particular slide can take us to a new webinar. But yeah, I mean, if participants would like to add some ideas in the chat box,
Yeah.
then you can, if you want to go really briefly on some of the items here, because we do have some questions in the Padlet, and that we would like to answer as well. So yeah, you've got some more time to go along.
All right. Good. Good. What do you do in your lessons to make sure that your students speak, although it's a grammar lesson, although it's a reading lesson? Can you put them in the chat box, please? Or you can just unmute yourself and say it.
You make the task personalized.
Okay. When it is personal, they can talk more, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's say a true-false activity, a gap-fill activity in a grammar lesson. If the sentences give you that opportunity, they can then talk about themselves. If those statements are true or false about themselves, about them, right? It's going to be speaking, and you're going to be exploiting the activity. Let me check the chat box if there is any. Okay. All right. If there's no other contribution, maybe we can save this for another webinar. I'll answer the questions, but my main reference for the session was Scott Turnberry's How to Teach Speaking. I just wanted to share it with you. And I'd like to thank you for being here. And you'll see my mail address at the bottom. If you already don't have it, please note it down. And if you want to stay in contact, ask me some questions, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aysel, for a very informative webinar.
Thank you.
Do have a couple of questions. The first question is how to deal with students with different cultures, and especially those who do not accept feedback or criticism from the teacher on their speaking performance.
Oh, okay. I think that's a very good question. Thank you. I think I can understand that. I can relate to that because I think I'm teaching in a similar culture. Understanding the purpose of feedback is very important, and how you give feedback is also important. without hurting your students' feelings. You can encourage self-correction. For example, you can help student notice the problem and correct himself or herself. You may gradually maybe introduce peer feedback, help students correct each other. Of course, one thing you can do is, especially in the productive stage, is making this correction anonymous. We love delayed error correction a lot. When you monitor your students during the task, while they're doing the task, you can note down the language you hear, note down the good language, and of course some language with problems, and maybe then write them on the board. And without naming names, you can just have a correction that will help students upgrade their language. But in the controlled practice, of course, we're talking about hot correction, but you can still do it without hurting your students' feelings, and encourage self-correction, help him or her notice. And echoing is a feedback technique. Of course, if you are not echoing regularly, you can echo and help students hear the correct use, or you can repeat the corrected version to your students so they can notice. But I think the real problem here is, or the real key here is, they should understand that you are giving them feedback, that the feedback
value of feedback.
Yeah, the value of feedback, and your strategies for giving feedback should be clear to the students.
Okay, what about shy students? Students who do not want to participate. They already know the answer, but they are shy. They do not have self-confidence to speak. How can I motivate them and make them relaxed or more relaxed?
A very good question. I'm still trying to answer in my teaching. I understand, but maybe it's a gradual process. For some students, you can start involving them with easier tasks, for example, so that they feel safe and they can be sure about their answers. What I really like is the peer check. In speaking lessons, it's also possible. Those pair works and peer checks, in a way, give students a confidence to share their answers. If you let them compare their answers in pairs, and if you hear that they have answered, or those shy students answered correctly during the peer check, you can say, okay, I have heard your answer. Why don't you share with the whole group? So you can just encourage them. But incorporating pair work, peer check in your lessons is very important. I think it's a step to. Yes, Abir, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that sometimes students are reluctant to speak because, as you were talking throughout this, your webinar, is they might feel they don't have the tools, they don't have the linguistic tools to actually participate. So it starts from planning. When you're planning your speaking task, you want to make sure that they have got the support, like you've mentioned, the language support, the content support, and we could go gradually, like you've mentioned, go from easy to more challenging. Many speaking tasks could also help. So when students feel they need to produce like a real speaking task, they just they back off. So many speaking tasks help students get into it, and like you said, with peer checking and self-correction, they would be encouraged more. No one said speaking is an easy task in class.
Never.
So,
Never.
Especially if are not into it.
Yeah, I think we're all non-natives, well, except for Judy, of course. We're all non-native speakers of English, and it's not that easy for us to be automatic in using language in spoken form. I've been learning English, I don't know for how many years, and I still see myself as a language learner. I'm still learning English. So be patient and show that you understand how your students feel and help them with a very well planned, thank you, Abir, lesson. Provide them with the tools they need to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aisel. So I'm sorry, can I just add one more thing? Is because with Aisel's background as a professor in a university, so most of her teaching experience goes with adults. So we do have a question on young learners, but maybe Muhammad wanted to ask a question, right?
I'd like to thank you, Ms. Habir, for your great participation and your great idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Muhammad. So to go back to the Padlet, as I said, Aisel is a professor in a university in the Anadolu, right? Aisel?
Anadolu, yeah. In Anadolu, yeah.
University in Turkey. So, and for 31 years, she has been an experienced language teacher and educator. A lot of her experience focuses on adults. I don't know if she has any young learners experience, but we do have one question, which is how to motivate young learners to speak freely. So I don't know, Aisel, if you have any ideas on the top of your head, or you would like to pose this question to maybe a more specialized speaker.
Well, to be honest, as you have said, all my teaching experience has been with adults. So I don't have much experience with, I have no experience with young learners. If anyone has any ideas, please feel free
drop it
to
in the
share.
chat box. Yes, please. If you have any ideas of how to motivate young learners, please put it in the chat box. I can, I mean, I don't know. Personally, I think with young learners, it has to be very relevant to what they like to do. So knowing my students, knowing what they like, maybe will encourage them to speak. So if my students, some of them like movies, so maybe they can speak about a movie they have recently watched, or if they like sports or food. So I think whatever is relevant to their, yeah. Thank you very much, Ahmed. I guess that's from my experience with young learners. But please, yes, add more ideas in the chat box if you've got more.
I think we should take into consideration their cognitive development level in L1 also, their linguistic development level in L1 also. Reward, Muhammad recommends reward and good work. Yes, all those stars and everything. And gamifying speaking, yeah. I remember my daughter coloring pages and cutting out pages from her books, and of course making it more meaningful, lots of action. The good thing about young learners is they are not shy, they are not afraid of making mistakes, they are not afraid of peer pressure. Playing to their curiosity.
Painting, singing, we do have visual actions.
Their attention span is unfortunately not very long, so keep that in mind. So know the features of the young learners and appeal to those features in a way. Keep a lively lesson.
Okay, so let's see if any more questions. If you have any more questions, please, if you can drop it in the chat box for Aisel to answer.
Please do.
We have a few minutes left, so we can go over maybe one or two questions.
Yeah, appealing activities to their interest. 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Very short, very short. So keeping them active is important. Chants, they may enjoy songs, chants a lot.
Yep. Okay, I guess everyone is okay. Well, thank you very much, Aisel, for your time and for your research in helping a lot of us with speaking into our ESL classes. And thank you very everyone for attending and coming and being here and joining. A lot of discussion has been going on in the chat box. So thank you very much. I would just like to confirm that we will be sending digital certificates to everyone who has been attending today. So you should be getting a digital certificate via email by Thursday. And I'm going to share my screen with the October webinars. So please feel
Before
free.
you do so, may I say thank you to you, Abir, and to IH Cairo for bringing me together with this nice group of teachers who has big hearts because they are teacher. Thank you, Usan. It's very nice to see you. Feliz, they took me to many years ago. I see some of my former students from the ELT department. It's been an honor to see you here. And thank you everyone. It's been a pleasure, a great honor to be here to talk to you on this nice topic. I hope you enjoyed.
Yes, we did. We did. I think everyone enjoyed, and I mean, we can see it in the chatted discussion. I mean, it's still going on. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will be looking forward to more webinars on speaking in lessons like grammar lessons and vocabulary and so on. I'm sure everyone would love to hear your ideas. So I'm sure we will get another chance to do so. For the time being, as I said, we do have our October calendar planned. So please follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for registration links. We do have 3 webinars in October. One on continuous professional development for busy teachers. On the 10th of October, we do have following week cracking the codes of SEF. And on the 24th is time management in ELT classes. So please join us. It's free and it's your time to ask questions. And
can we have a link, by the way? Sorry.
Yes.
Can we have a link?
Yes, sure. You
Sorry,
do.
I came late. I'm a late participant.
No, it's okay. I will share. If you could give me a second. Let me try to share the link. 1 second, sorry. Okay, so the event has gone live on Facebook, Adil. So if you have missed it, you can always, I think you can go and watch the recording. Okay. I'm trying to get you the link.
I have some questions, but I think it's the end.
Please.
The
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Some questions are related to professional development. I would ask the guest about what channels and what you can say, what tools can an educator use to improve his educational and professional development.
Yeah, that's next
skills,
week's.
So
in the chat box, I am sharing the links for the webinars in October. And I think this question, if you can hold on to this question, Adil, for the webinar on the 10th of October, I'm sure you will be able to have a lot of answers from Fiona, who will be focusing on continuous professional development for busy teachers. So we will wait for you on October 17th at 11 a.m. Cairo time to join and ask your question. And if you follow up on our Facebook page, I'm going to put the link to the page as well, so you can like the page and get yourself to know all what's happening.
Okay, many thanks.
You're welcome. So here is a page for Facebook in order to be able to follow up on all the news on professional development and all the courses we're planning for teachers. So IH Cairo is planning a set of teacher training courses for language teachers all over the world. So if you follow our Facebook page, you will be able to get a lot of info on that. And next week we will have the links to the courses as well. So stay tuned. We're waiting for you to join us in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone. And thank you,
Yes.
Aysel. Please, if you have any questions for Aysel, it's your last chance. Otherwise,
Can I say something, Mrs. Abir, that listening can improve speaking? Okay. So if young learners are exposed to listening, then they are going to be a good speakers.
well, I totally agree on that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your contribution, Mohammed. Yeah, I agree. Listening should be an essential component so that they are exposed to the grammar of spoken English, right?
All the skills are integrated.
Yeah, they all feed from each other. They all feed each other. Correct. I agree.
Thank you very much. It was a nice webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you
Bye.
in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Thank you.
How are you? Great to see you too.
I'm good. I miss you guys.
You're so missed.
I know. Feelings is mutual. Hi, Mohammed.